Silent Hill F takes us beyond the simple gesture of blaming society for our problems and then fantasizing a different version of ourselves on the other side of that. And it shows how that gesture is not enough, how it actually upholds the problems we think we're facing. So, what Silent Hill F gives us instead is a really harrowing, radical gameplay that we press through and reach to this conclusion only to start all over again and repeat the process in order to get to the game's different endings. And it's only with this action of seeing our own position through radically that we move beyond the issue of our struggle with society into our struggle with ourselves and how we're connected to reality itself. So it takes the feminist gesture to its radical conclusion, and Silent Hill F is a wonderful work of fiction that we'll talk about fully. If you don't know me, though, my name's Nicholas Crawford, and I'm a philosopher who engages horror and radicality, and my own apocalyptic literary fiction with zombies in it, Where We've Made It Dark, comes out in just 2 weeks on October 21st, and it has its own radicality at work there if you're interested. So without laying out the plot, there are two things you have to gloss before getting to the endings. The gameplay is built up with these monsters that are all masks or faceless. And you see how these two things are in connection with one another. One boss is the face is up here, and they have a gaping hole mouth thing, So we get to this connection where the face is a mask. It functions as a mask. And what we get beneath it with the unmasking is this, gaping ontological void, a hole. It's not this simple, clean relationship of our true self is behind the mask and the mask is this fake facade. We're getting to a very deep struggle here in the gameplay, in these monsters that we keep having to face. The other thing to keep in mind with Silent Hill F and the gameplay that gets us to these endings is the ways in which we undergo doing terrible things ourselves. So basically, the character, Hinako, gets split between a normal world self and this dream world self where she's being guided by the fox mask character guy, who's kind of her guardian, but it's dubious what's actually going on. And she basically undergoes a situation where, to continue forward in the game, you brutally unalive your own friends, and then you maim and transform your very body yourself, and become this wolf person who gives up her arm and her face and gets branded. So the question is, what does it do to force the player to do these terrible things while our own character is being very impassive and willfully undergoing and doing these things? So, the very nice thing isn't simply just acknowledging that the character does these bad things, but making us do it, and what that achieves. Where does that take us? And it genuinely takes us to these radical different endings of the story where the real meaning and value of the story actually takes place. So the first ending of Silent Hill F doesn't give us much information at all. We are confronted with the giant wife monster with a wolf arm and a severed face, and we're unable to defeat her. And we flee, and we're running for a long time with the normal monsters of the game, which are like these doll-like figures with knives. And we're pressing through them again and again until we reach a point at the end where we're told with a police chatter that there's been a wedding massacre and your parents are unalived, and you've been taking these pills that have steered you into this self-destruction. So it shows how you do all of this, and it doesn't get you anywhere. We have to change what we're doing in order to get anywhere in the story. It's only with the second ending, the bad ending, that we actually understand what's going on. We're being married off to the fox mask figure, and our childhood best friend, Shu, has been trying to interrupt the marriage by giving us these pills to make us go a bit crazy. In this position, we realize we've been playing as a regular version of Hinako who wants freedom and to have her own life, and a version that is swayed by the fox mask figure and is willing to change her own self bodily, and do these terrible things in order to be in love with the fox mask figure. So Shu comes in to save the day, and we refuse him. and he confesses what he's been doing, and we fight a version of him as the boss that is guilty and repentant. And what we're effectively doing is finding a way to forgive Shu. We're able to purify him of his evil and get him to come to terms with the fact that we're going to be married off to Fox Mask figure. So this ends with these two males who have been trying to control you in their love for you. Both of them love you, or at least want to. But both of them have their different ways of being very controlling of you, and they find a way to become allies with each other and be okay with you getting married off to the Fox Mask guy. And so there's a wonderful synergy between these two figures that happens directly over you, and you get married off to the Fox Mask guy, and we get this horrific screaming of Hinako's face on the ground, the severed face, screaming she doesn't want to become like her mother, and she gets stomped by a foot. It's a dreadful juxtaposition between this harmony that happens with these two guys and this squashing of Hinako's position in order to become this disfigured, married off figure. Now, the best thing about the good ending is how it isn't enough. So here we take the side of the Hinako who wants to be free, and we side with Shu as he comes to save the day and break us from the Fox Mask figure. And that unveils the way in which the Fox Mask figure is actually tied to this Fox God figure who, chose you and wants to marry you through the Fox Mask character. And you fight him bravely and you defeat him. He accepts his defeat and you run off and gain real freedom with Shu. But this makes the fabric of reality itself fall apart when the city basically becomes undone with like radioactive or some sort of just cosmic destruction, basically. So it's only with the fourth ending that we get to a point where we finally stop what we're doing. And the Hinako who wants her freedom and the Hinako who wants to marry the Fox figure stop fighting to a point where only one of them can win, and instead turn their direction towards the person they love. The Hinako who wants freedom fights the figure of Shu, and the Hinako who wants to marry the Fox figure fights the Fox God. And so you do this simultaneously, and when you defeat these two figures, we reach a point where the Fox Mask figure, whose name is Kotoyuki, in the real person, he bravely intervenes, holds off this God figure, and admits his own guilt, and questions whether he can get to a point where he truly can love you without controlling you. And the Hinako who wants freedom is open to it. She doesn't treat him as an enemy figure, but says she's open to seeing if they will fall in love as well. And we get to a point too where the defense formation of this doll figure that's been warning us throughout the game, don't trust the Fox Mask figure. We take our own personal strength that's been holding off these demons, these super egoic figures telling us to marry the Fox Mask figure. We lose our need for it, and the doll goes tumbling, and it's a bit broken, and we're done with it. So we've changed. We've radically changed. And so we get this ending where we're in the town that we've been in, and it's completely silent. There are no demons anymore, and it's just the two of us. The Hinako who wants freedom, the Hinako who is falling in love with Kotoyuki, and who has changed herself in this process. She's still the monstrous figure with a mask and a wolf arm. But we don't get a synthesis here. These two things don't become one. We don't become a whole person in this, yin-yang sort of relation. We've reached this radical gap in who we are, where these two things coexist, and they don't coincide. And so they both want their own freedoms. One wants to fall in love. One wants just the freedom of, being open to the possibility of life itself. And that's basically where the game ends. We're no longer self-destructive or tearing ourselves apart. We just coexist with these two versions of ourselves. And so that's the radical conclusion of Silent Hill F. That's the wonderful thing it reveals, the way in which we are inconsistent with ourselves. We have different desires, and these different desires might pull us in different directions, but we don't just choose one. We keep them open. So it's an opening up of who we are. That's what Hinako's story is.